So I've decided to start playing Squad a lot more lately, coming from Hell Let Loose, because I've been playing Hell Let Loose for the last few years and making loads of content for it, and sort of been a bit disappointed with what's happening with the game. I've sort of realised that there's a number of things that Squad does better than Hell Let Loose, and while this video is only going to talk about 5 of them, there are more things that Squad does better than Hell Let Loose, and Hell Let Loose does some things better than Squad. But let's start with first the tutorial. Now, a tutorial for these type of games I feel is quite important because not every player has played like a hardcore or a realistic shooter before. They could be coming from something like Call of Duty or Battlefield where they've decided that they want to play a good first person shooter, but they need a bit more information about the game before they jump into a server to find out how the game actually plays in terms of its mechanics and all that sort of stuff. And yes, you could just jump straight into a game and have the players actually tell you how to play the game, but it'd be better to jump in with at least a baseline of information, such as knowing how to spawn or build and stuff, healing yourself or others, a resource system if there is one, and just even being able to test out weapons and your controls and mouse sensitivity before you actually join a game. Now with Squad has a tutorial. This tutorial is quite reminiscent of like a single player tutorial that's separate from a campaign. It introduces you to the movement mechanics, stamina management, the suppression system, healing yourself, healing others, reviving others, the rally points, which is a squad specific spawn point, the radios, building stuff, resources, the various factions, their camo so you can identify them, the vehicles and vehicle weak points, and there's also faction specific weapon ranges, kill houses, weapon emplacement ranges, lots of vehicle stuff, and a separate helicopter training mission. So that's a lot of good stuff you can do before you actually jump into an actual multiplayer game. Now with Hell Let Loose, it has a manual. Now people do learn in different ways. Some like to read stuff, some like to actually do it. And for me, I like to actually perform the action that I'm trying to learn because it just tends to stick in my head more. Now Hell Let Loose, it does have a tutorial system coming like throughout this year, but we just don't know what that is yet. The first like implementation of their tutorial system has been putting GIFs or GIFs into the manual. So not that much so far. Now map variety is important. You want to be able to play on lots of different types of maps, sizes of maps, and just different locations. Some urban focused, some sort of more rural focused or mixed ones. You want to be able to play on one map, jump to another one and have them feel almost completely different. Now for Hell Let Loose, it does have different types of maps, more urban focused ones like Carentan or Stalingrad, more rural focused like Utah, Kursk or Purple Heart Lane, or maps that are more mixed like SME, SMDM, Omaha and Kharkov. But all maps in Hell Let Loose are the same size, they're 4 kilometers squared. Now this isn't necessarily an issue. Bigger maps doesn't mean they're automatically better. It's about how well the map is designed, and Hell Let Loose does generally have maps that are well designed, but each of those maps, they have the same limitations, the same dimensions, the same shape, and the same out of bounds areas. This does on pretty much all map lead to the same types of movements that your squad will do, apart from maybe 2 maps, Remagen and Driel, just because they have the 2 big bridges. So I would like to see some maps in Hell Let Loose that actually have like different dimensions and different shapes to them. I know we're getting some smaller maps with the objective and skirmish mode, so it would be interesting to see what direction they take those maps in. Now Squad, again, has varied types. There's more urban focused ones like Fallujah or Narva, and more rural ones like Black Coast, Mestia, Lashkar Valley. And with Squad, the maps have different sizes, and I believe it's anything from 1.7 kilometers squared to 57.8 kilometers squared. And the maps also have different shapes. They don't just stick to the same rectangle that Hell Let Loose does. And within these maps and the map sizes, there will be different like actual shapes to the map. It's not just going to be one sort of large square or large rectangle, which is the entire map size. There will be different limitations within that map size. So that means every map is generally going to have different types of movement. And because some maps are a lot larger, you're going to have different modes of transports available like helicopters, and taking a helicopter through these larger maps, you can see just like the immense scale of some of these maps instead of just like in Hell Let Loose where every map is like the same scale, it's the exact same size. And with Squad, it can just make each map feel very different in terms of how you play it and what to expect. In Hell Let Loose, the commander is a single role, and they generally manage the battle. They get the squads to do certain things if the squads listen. They have access to certain abilities like spawning in tanks, calling in airstrikes, and generally the team rely on the commander to build garrisons, which are the spawn points for the entire team. And they generally get the blame when the team loses, and they generally play the game different to other players. They may be sat back at base, ordering people around, or just driving around building garrisons while trying to keep an eye on the general overall battle. And if you have a bad commander, you can only remove them if vote kick is enabled on the server. I know on consoles there's vote kick always, or by an admin request if they are breaking the server rules. Now with Squad, the commander is just a squad leader of a normal squad, and when someone wants to be a commander, a vote is opened and multiple people can enter this vote to become a commander, but only one is chosen, the winner of the vote. And the commander generally manages the battle. They get the squads to do certain things, they have access to certain abilities, but the team doesn't rely on that one commander to build the FOBs, which are the spawn points. Every squad leader generally pitches in with this, and the commander generally plays the game like a normal squad leader. They won't just be sat back at the main base, they won't just be driving around trying to build up spawn points. They will be pushing to attack, they will be defending locations while doing commander stuff in chat and using abilities. Bad commanders, they can be removed by another commander vote. And I think because of this, the commander in Squad is generally a better implementation than Hell Let Loose. While Hell Let Loose's commander is, I think it's more trying to be like a sort of the general sort of character who's overseeing the whole battle, just because of how different you play the commander and how much the team relies on that guy to build up all the spawn points. It can generally be a really different gameplay style, which isn't a bad thing really, but if you're just either going to be sat back at base, almost playing like an RTS, or just driving around building garrisons because your team only think that you should be building them, which is funny because originally the commander couldn't even build garrisons in Hell Let Loose, and then just comparing it to Squad, well, the commander can just play sort of normally and join in with all the other squads on the front lines if they want to, and they won't take the blame of not building spawn points because generally in Squad, all the other squad leaders will be building these spawn points anyway. I don't think I've started a game of Squad so far where my squad leader has not built a spawn point. In Hell Let Loose, you have 6-man squads. Now, I'm not sure why that's limited to 6, and I think this is the only hardcore or realistic game that actually does this. Other games that use 6-man squads are, well, it's pretty much Battlefield. What this does is it limits roles, and it means that some roles just don't get taken. Like you see really limited use of riflemen or medics. Now you could say this could be a good thing because you have to sort of specialize your squad a bit more, but you can also just easily change roles all the time, so I don't see that argument really of just being able to like specialize the squad. But comparing this to Squad, you have 9-man squads, and pretty much most of the available roles get taken, and you will generally have multiple riflemen and usually a medic or 2, and this adds a lot more usefulness to the squad, and it feels more like you're an actual unit instead of just a few guys running around. I would probably say in Squad, Rifleman is probably the most played role, while in Hell Let Loose, Rifleman is probably the least played role, or maybe Medic is the least played role. I think the 9-man squads of Squad is just a lot better. I would like to see Hell Let Loose increase the squad size. I don't think that will ever happen because that's a huge fundamental change to how Hell Let Loose will be played. In Squad, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a role that you need in your squad available at all times, while in Hell Let Loose, you're going to ask someone to change to anti-tank or change to support or change to an engineer. In Squad, yeah, you just don't get that. Now, the medic in Hell Let Loose, I feel it's a rarely taken role. Now, for me, the medic, that was the first role I played, like, hardcore, just medic, straight away in Hell Let Loose because no one was playing as a medic. And coming from other games, like even just something like Battlefield, medics are just super useful. But in Hell Let Loose, medics don't have that big impact. And there's a few reasons behind that. One of them is that a lot of people just release to death so they can redeploy instead of waiting to get resurrected. Most people just prefer to redeploy so they can spawn back in with full ammo and just sprint back from their OP or garrison. And the recent changes to the sprint speed just hasn't helped this at all, because you can spawn back at your spawn point and get back into battle just that extra bit quicker now. And when you die in Hell Let Loose, there's no real major impact in the game. You just respawn and it's fine. Yeah, it could lead to you losing ground when you're defending, or your attack may not be as successful. But in squad, you can have up to 2 medics in your squad compared to Hell Let Loose, which is just the 1. And the medic in squad, it is a required role for success. And medics do have a big impact on the game, as when you fully die in squad, you lose 1 ticket. And when your team gets to 0 tickets, you lose. Medics are always wanted in squads, and at the beginning of a game, if there's no medics in that squad, I do commonly hear the squad leader say, someone be a medic. And generally in squad as well, people will wait for medics. They love medics. Medics in squad are super important to the game, and I wish Hell Let Loose just made medics just somehow better or more important. Now, Hell Let Loose, it doesn't use a ticket system. I don't want Hell Let Loose to use a ticket system, because again, that'd be a huge fundamental change to the game, which they just shouldn't put in. But they need to do something to make medics just a little bit better. So that is just 5 things I think squad does better than Hell Let Loose. Like I said earlier, there are more things that squad does better than Hell Let Loose, and there's things that Hell Let Loose does better than squad. And I may make more videos talking about this, because while the 2 games are really different in terms of how they handle their more hardcore or realistic aspects, I think in this sort of gaming space, now that Postscriptum is dead, Beyond the Wire is dead, I think that Hell Let Loose's main competitor is squad. And for squad, I think it has 2 main competitors, Arma and Hell Let Loose. But I can't really talk about Arma because I don't really play Arma. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. What do you think each game does better than the other? And if you like this video, give it a like if you did, dislike if you didn't. Subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.